Today's episode is sponsored by Studio Bank, co-founded by Belmont alum Harry Allen. With decades of banking experience, Studio Bank combines the best of both worlds, the sophistication of a larger institution with the unparalleled client service of a great local bank. To learn more about how they support Nashville's creators, visit studiobank.com.
Welcome to the What If podcast. We're sharing an ever-growing collection of stories from the Belmont entrepreneur community to inspire you to start and keep going. I'm your host, Elizabeth Gortmaker. Here we go. Well, hey, Megan and Jimmy, thank you guys for being on the podcast today. It's really great to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So we'll just dive right in. Megan, you studied music business. Jimmy, you were a finance major. Y'all graduated in 2015. And now you have launched and are running NoBaked cookie dough. You've got many locations around the Southeast. But walk us through post-graduation. You guys were in two very different industries. So what was your work experience like? And then lead us into launching NoBaked cookie dough. Just give us the origin story of all of this.
Yeah, so I, like you said, went to school for music business, graduated from Belmont. I spent pretty much all of my years at Belmont interning in the music industry at a record label, but I actually wanted to go into artist management more than anything. But once I graduated, I ended up getting a job in music publishing. And so I was doing just like the standard 9 to 5, sitting at a desk all day in an office thing for about a year and a half. And it was just very unfulfilling for me.
It was long enough for you to know you didn't want to do that.
Yeah. I spent long enough doing that to realize that it just was not where I was going to thrive. And I have parents who are small business owners. So my example of people working was kind of more like a flexible thing. You know, they're making their own schedules. They're in charge of their own success. Like everything that happens to them is in their control. And so I think I was kind of already craving that when I was working in those jobs. I just didn't realize that would happen to me prior. You can talk about what you were doing too.
I was in a similar situation as far as like how I felt about my job. And between graduating in December of 2015 and then actually like doing NoBaked full time for me in July of 2017, I think I'd switched jobs 3 times. So I was like, I don't know what I want to do. It's kind of like where my head was at. And I think when you're in that spot, especially after you graduate, like we now ironically employ a lot of Belmont students. And when we see them graduate and they're still kind of working for us and trying to figure out what to do after graduation, I relate to that so much because it's a really weird time to try to figure out like, what am I supposed to do with my life? There's no instruction and there's no like manual. And so for me, I realized when Megan started NoBaked and I got roped into making cookie dough all the time, because ironically she doesn't like to, I started liking it more than my job. And I was like, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And that kind of led me to quit my job in July of that year. Megan had already like quit her job, left after like the 10th order. And
yeah. So to go back, so once I realized, you know, I don't think this working full time in an office thing is for me, I kind of was like, what original thought do I have? Like, what is something that I've created that I think other people would actually like? And my chocolate chip cookie dough recipe was really the one thing. It was something that I would eat all the time. And I did that because cookie dough was always like my favorite dessert, even though it wasn't considered something that you could eat. So I had made this recipe that was technically safe to eat. You know, I felt like it was delicious and I felt like there were people out there that also liked to eat cookie dough raw, but there was just no one kind of giving them that product that they could eat. So I was basically like, okay, I could continue sitting in these jobs, you know, that I prepared for, that I thought I wanted to do, or I could take the chance and just see if something else will work out, something where, you know, I'm in control and I feel like I'm actually doing something different. And so that's kind of what started NoBaked. It was a combination of me not wanting to stay on this path that I felt like I had no control over, and also loving cookie dough and feeling like there really was a need out there that wasn't being provided for.
So you started making cookie dough. How did you start selling it? You know, did you just start giving it to friends, or when did it start to pick up?
Yeah, so I would spend my lunch breaks at that job making a website. And my idea was that I would launch the brand on social media, you know, just using local influencers and things like that. And then people would order through the website that I had created, and I would either deliver it to their house or ship it to them if they weren't in Nashville. And that was kind of the extent of my plan. I just figured, like, if people order, like, I'll get it to them somehow, and that'll be that. And so I built the website, and then I created an Instagram page, and I reached out to like local Nashville pages that would post about local businesses or, you know, events that were going on and things like that. And I basically just said, "Hey, I am launching a safety cookie dough company. Like, we're based in Nashville. I would love if you would post about it on this specific day, and I'll give you free samples before then, so you can try it out." And so I made a bunch of free samples in these cute little goodie bags, and I dropped them off to influencers' houses, and I gave them the date that I was launching the website. And that day came, and I just kind of hoped that they would post or that they liked it. And enough of them posted to where we got a small following and some orders from people in Nashville. But at the time, I still had my job. And so this was a Sunday that we launched. And like Jimmy said, I'm pretty sure we got like 10 orders maybe. In my head, I'm like, nah, we got like 50 orders. But I think it was probably like 10 orders. And I just went into my job the next day and I quit immediately.
No way.
Yeah, I went into my job, and I remember like they had a phone room where you could go use your phone if you needed to. And I remember going in there like multiple times, like calling my mom, calling Jimmy, and just being like, should I do it? Should I do it? Should I quit? And they were both like, yeah, like you might as well just go for it. And so I just kind of reasoned in my head, like, I could quit my job. Like, I know I can make NoBaked work, whatever it takes. And so I had that in my head, and I quit my job. And then I think I spent the rest of that day trying to figure out how to actually ship cookie dough because I hadn't figured that part out yet. I was just kind of winging it. And yeah, that was the start. That's really how it started.
Getting 10 orders was enough for you to say, I'm going to quit my job. That validated the idea enough. And you just knew it in your gut. You knew it was good. You knew you were going to do it. And you had Jimmy's support. And were you guys married at the time?
No, we were not even engaged when we first launched NoBaked. So we were living together though. And so, you know, I don't know in his head if he was like, oh no, if this doesn't work out, like I have to pay all of our rent, or
really.
what was happening. But
we didn't have like a lot of bills. Like it wasn't like, I mean, I think for a lot of college students out there, maybe like you graduate, you get a real job, you're like, whoa, like I wasn't spending that much money. Sometimes you have lifestyle creep, but we both had gotten super into this whole like minimalism thing right before NoBaked. And so I was just like, I mean, what do we pay? We paid at the time $1,300 a month for rent.
Yeah, and like a 2-bedroom house
like,
or something.
I mean, that's not possible anymore.
Yeah.
But
in Nashville, that's massive. Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, we're not like we were making more than that. We were saving a little bit. Yeah, Megan needed $100. That was proof of concept. It was like, all right, we're good. Let's go.
Yeah, but also the fact that, the influencers that I did deliver samples to posted and said that they liked it. And, soon after launching, you guys had reached out to me about doing the National Record Day event at Boulevard. So it was like,
It was like 2 weeks
I
later.
feel like there's a lot of validation already. So it's going to be fine.
I know. I love that. So we have 2 student-run businesses on campus. They're 2 retail stores that students come up with the business idea, they launch the business, and then run the business. At the time, one of those retail stores was a record store. And so Record Store Day is a huge event nationwide, but obviously in Nashville, it's a massive event in April. And we wanted a pop-up outside to help, bring in more customers or just to have fun events for our customers that came. That day we had a line out the door on Record Store Day. I remember that. But you guys set up a tent, and it might have been one of your first pop-ups or your first pop-up.
It was the first one.
The first one. So, and I remember you 2 were out there. Jimmy's out there, slinging cookie dough and all that. And so was that 2017? Remind me what year that was.
Yeah, it was 2017. So we launched the week before that. I think that was like April 6th or 7th, and we launched on March 30th. So
okay, so you guys just celebrated 5 years this past spring. Okay, so from that pop-up in 2017, when did your first storefront open? When were you able to make that jump?
Yeah, so it opened in October of that same year.
Wow.
Originally, I wasn't completely sure that we were going to do a pop-up, or a storefront. But once Jimmy left his job and started doing NoBaked full time, that allowed us to kind of expand our pop-up presence, where we could do multiple pop-ups a week. We could produce a lot more cookie dough. And we started getting this regular customer base who would come find us every weekend to get their cookie dough. And they just kept saying, when are you going to have a storefront? We want to see more flavors. We want to come in and do all these things. And that's kind of when it got into our head, oh, maybe we should actually turn this into something bigger.
Yeah, our customers encourage us a lot. And then, quitting my job, similar to Megan quitting her job, you have a moment where you realize you can make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to quit my job, it was kind of like, well, worst case scenario, we can sell cookie dough on the street corner to pregnant women in Nashville. Because there were these ladies there that 2017, that summer, there was one lady who DM'd us on Instagram, and I met her outside of our apartment to give her cookie dough. A random night of the week. We had things like that happen, and we were like, well, we clearly make something people like to eat. It's not bad. It's clearly tastes good. So maybe we should try to do this in a bigger way.
It's so good. And there's something unique about, it truly, you couldn't buy cookie dough. That it was through you guys. And so, I can relate to that lady, because there's many a nights where I'm jonesing for my cookie dough. It's so good. So did you guys bootstrap that whole way to being able to launch the storefront?
A lot of credit cards.
Yeah. I, prior to NoBaked, I probably had one credit card, the standard starter credit card. And we now have a full flip book of pages of credit cards. But yeah, at the time we were looking for spaces to lease. And the only, typically when you lease a commercial space, the landlord will give you money to put towards it, to turn it into what you need. But the only person that would lease to us, at the time we were 2 23-year-olds with no assets, nothing to our name, and student loan debt. So the only person that would lease to us wouldn't give us any money to put towards the space. It was a take it or leave it. It was already a restaurant. You can easily do whatever you need to do. And because of that, we were just kind of okay, it's either we find a way to turn this into our scoop shop, or we don't get a space, period. So I basically applied for every credit card in existence. And with the ones that I got approved for, we did the construction ourselves, and turned what was our original store into, our first ever scoop shop.
Yeah.
Wow. When
Yeah.
did you open your second store?
Our second one was in March of 2018. So once we launched the first one,
You get a lot of really great ideas in your head. No, we were really young and we had a lot of success really fast.
Mhm.
So I think it's similar to like if a gambler was to go to the roulette wheel and they won on the very first spin,
Yeah.
and they won again. They would
Yeah.
be like, I'm going to put all my money down again, which is essentially what we did. So like we paid off all of the debt. And then we paid for franchising like documents to be made because we had this idea in our head that we could franchise this business that had been open for less than a year. And then we signed a lease on a second store in Louisville, and we took all those credit cards and we built that store out, which was psychotic. But then that worked out really well again.
Yeah.
And it put
You
us.
guys are very lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Come to think of it, do y'all want to go to Vegas?
No.
Not now.
This story takes a turn for the worse.
Okay, keep going. Tell us.
I think that what you find though with our business and with a lot of other businesses is like they run in like 12-month or 18-month cycles of like really good things happening and then a lot of struggle and then really good things happening. And nothing ever happens in a straight line. It's always in like leaps and bounds, like up and down. And we opened that second store in March of 2018, exactly 1 year after Megan had been making cookie dough in our apartment. And we made over $100,000 in 1 month in profit. And we were like, we have the Midas touch. Nothing can go wrong. We know exactly what we're doing. Of course, we're going to sell franchises. And that's when we began selling franchises. That's right around the time the legal documents were done. And that's also kind of the beginning of our period of struggle. Is what I would like to refer to it as. And Megan can like back me up on this, from March of 2018 all the way until probably October, November of 2019. NoBaked grew like a weed. We made less and less money every month in profit, and we started to feel the stress and the pressure a lot more over the next like year and a half. Just because we didn't really have a mission or a goal. After that point, like Megan's goal was like, let's get the shop open. And my goal was also like, let's get the shop open, let's sell some franchises. There wasn't like this is what we're trying to do. And we both had that realization, I guess like a year and a half later, when we were so far deep into it that we were like, what have we done?
How many locations did you have by that point?
We had 8 open. We just opened the 8th in Cincinnati. And we were like, every single store we open outside of Nashville does worse and worse. Every single franchise that we sign, like the franchisee does really well in the beginning. And then, the work that they need to do clicks in and it doesn't get done. And now speaking from experience and also being much older and having seen a lot of our friends that are entrepreneurs who may have been doing it for way longer than we have, go through some of these same things, you start to realize that when you're buying or you're like selling a franchise to someone for something like NoBaked, you're not selling them like a McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And so like the amount of effort they have to put in is the same that we had to put in to start the business in Nashville. And that's really hard. And not only really hard, it's really time consuming. And a lot of these people still had other jobs, other businesses they were running. And for us too, like we consistently didn't put as much effort into the stores we were opening. That we owned, because we were focused on the ones here in Nashville, or we were focused on other things that didn't really make any sense.
So in 2.5 years, you went from working other jobs, making cookie dough in your apartment, to both quitting your jobs, going full time, and opening 8 stores.
Yeah.
And it all fell apart.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
We're here today.
So
COVID.
Yeah. End of 2019, 2019, we're
And a
like,
baby.
yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's another thing. So it was the end of 2019. Winter is already the worst time for the storefronts. Less people go out, less people get dessert. I think there was always an association with our scoop shops and ice cream, so it kind of had the same seasonality. I was also pregnant at the time with our first kid, and so at that point, like Jimmy said, our stores were not performing as well as they had before. They were performing worse than they ever had before. And we were kind of like, okay, we need to make some kind of shift to make this work. And I had created this whole like marketing plan for catering. We were like, maybe we should try putting a huge focus on catering,
And
like events, pop-ups, like kind of go back to our roots, and encourage our franchisees to do the same. And maybe that will help turn the storefronts around. So at the beginning of 2020, we had shifted our focus to kind of focus on all the events that were coming up in the spring. Wedding season was around the corner. There were just a lot of things that we were like, we could turn this around. We could be like, Nothing Bundt Cakes or Tiff's Treats, for gifting and catering and
offices,
like where people are gathering.
Such high hopes for 2020.
Yeah. We had high hopes and a whole plan to go along with it. And then March of 2020 came along, and obviously COVID came, and so did the stay-at-home orders. The health department in Nashville and in all the other cities where we had stores said we had to shut down. Everybody was there. Everything was shut down. And in March of 2020, I was 9 months pregnant. That was the month that I was due with our baby. And so there was this moment when me and Jimmy looked at each other and we were like, well, that was our sole source of income. Like, that's the only way we make money, and it just got shut down.
Also, March is our busiest month. We had signed the lease and paid the money for the Broadway location that is now currently open. It does really great. We had signed the lease and like done all the work for that, and it was supposed to open March of 2020. Our West End shop usually like killed it in March of 2020. Or not March, in every March. For some reason, we do more sales than any other month of the year. And a lot of other restaurant owners in Nashville kind of like tell you the same thing, which is weird.
People are coming out of winter. They're finally getting out and about.
Colleges.
Yeah.
So it's usually a really good month for hospitality here in Nashville. It ended up being the month from hell. I mean, it was a weird month, right? Like we had a tornado at the beginning of the month. Mm-hmm. And then March 14th, the COVID orders came in and everyone had to shut their restaurants down. I think that the one thing that, Megan left out and, the other little part of our plan that ended up helping was we went into that month like really grinding. Like Megan and I had come up with that plan. We'd been talking to people about raising money. Mm-hmm. We also had been working on our online store, which had been open again for about 3 months. At some point during 2018, we shut the online store down because it was just logistically too hard. And then I think either December or November of 2019, we reopened it. Mm-hmm. And we also came up with a good set of like core values and a new mission, which is chef driven, not lab driven, which we were really proud of because Megan, made the cookie dough in our kitchen, and that does make us a little different than other brands and businesses. But all of that kind of came together and like everything seemed to stop for a moment in March of that year. And then we were given the chance again, or the opportunity is how we look at it now, to be back in like October of 2017 and like figure out how to like navigate that time and figure out like what to do as far as like pivoting the business. And it just went way better than we could have imagined from that point on, just because we were forced against a wall. And that allowed us to kind of think a little more clearly.
Yeah. So when March of 2020 happened and we were forced to shut down, we did have full-time staff members running the stores. We had a ton of part-time staff members. At the time we had staff who depended on their income from NoBaked to pay for their house. Like, we were not in the position where it was a bunch of college students who could just go home and live with their parents again. So, like Jimmy said, we had restarted our online store that past winter once we tried to figure out like how to actually ship things in an efficient manner. And he also mentioned the tornado, which hit one of our storefronts, our worst performing storefront, ironically. But it hit it enough to where we were like, it's going to take a while to get this area of town back to normal. And then literally 2 weeks after the tornado, COVID happened. So in our heads, we were like, there's a pivot we can make here. With people staying home, they still need to get food. They're less likely to leave their houses. Everyone is terrified. We did technically count as an essential business and our staff members as essential workers because we were making food. And so there were exceptions to where we could go in and we could produce things even during the stay-at-home order. So we were basically like, let's be honest with our loyal customers and tell them the struggle that we are currently facing. And we launched this whole marketing campaign with influencers that we had worked with across the country. I took videos of our staff members introducing themselves, the ones that really needed to keep their jobs. And we basically said, we need the support right now as a small business who's being forced to close. If you want cookie dough, we are shipping nationwide. You can pick up from our location that we're producing it in, which was the one that was hit by the tornado. We basically turned that location into a production facility. And through our marketing campaign, we were able to pivot basically completely to an e-com business through COVID. It was, I think, the best pivot we ever made personally.
Yeah. I mean, we've pivoted since then and continued to evolve our business. And I think we've gotten a lot better at managing challenges because of COVID. And because we've started to remember like where we came from, which is very important. But yeah, I mean, we pivoted that March, and then from then on, it's like it was kind of up and up. We were managing the challenge of like figuring out how to manufacture cookie dough, which is a lot of fun, and also figuring out like how to run an e-commerce business efficiently, which is really hard. It's really easy to lose money doing e-commerce, which we found out the hard way. Is really easy to make a lot of like to sell a lot and really hard to actually make a profit. And that continued to kind of evolve throughout that year. And then in March of 2021, we actually started crowdfunding. And we raised our first kind of like funding rounds, kind of based on our e-commerce business. So like from 2019 to 2020, our sales actually were up like 70%. And that was due to like e-commerce, like completely. I think our stores might have done like $400,000 in sales in 2020 because they were closed a lot. And yeah, so like that was our business model. We thought that would work. And then April of 2021, Facebook ads stopped working, which was awesome. And that didn't just affect us, but it has affected, and you're starting to see the impacts of it today. A lot of businesses that we were doing during the pandemic, and then even before that, there's a lot of direct-to-consumer brands that are really big that everybody knows of, whether it be like Allbirds or Dollar Shave Club or whoever, that are now looking to kind of like have other ways of making money, because it turns out they never made money in the first place. And we learned that the hard way. So we like raised all that money in 2021, blew through it in like less than 6 months, kind of like leaning into that business model. We really leaned in, and then we kind of figured out like, we should stop. Like, again, according to our mission, like we're a product company, like chef driven, not lab driven, not necessarily centered around a business model, but centered around a product. And so, like, to Megan's credit, she made incredible products, and our job is to just get that to our customers in the best way possible for them. So, whether that be through our scoop shops or our online store or selling it with Kroger or whoever, like that's kind of what it's all about. And so right around the end of 2021, we actually stopped advertising online completely, cut the ad budget off, which was like ripping off a Band-Aid. And then that allowed us to kind of be free and be like, okay, we're going to do omni-channel stuff and we're going to try to be profitable. And then March of this year, right around our 5th year anniversary as a company, we went profitable again for the first time in a very long time, which was great. But it was due to the fact that we kind of leaned into doing wholesale, stopped having like preconceived notions about like what our product was or how it needed to be sold, and started just doing things that made sense. And also being scrappy again, the way we were before. When you don't have a lot of money in the bank, you think really, really hard about why you're doing the things you're doing. And unfortunately, and other people will probably tell you this as well, like if you raise money or you get financing for something or whatever you're doing, it's really, really easy to blow through the money with preconceived notions. Not like blowing it like, I don't care where it goes. Like you have a place where it's going and you're like, I'm going to put it here and it's going to make me more money. And you stick to that, even when you know it's not working. Because you have more time to see if it's going to work. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's the worst thing in the world because you'll burn through all that time and then you'll be like, okay, it didn't work. And now we're back to square one. But that's kind of how it goes.
Today's episode is sponsored by Studio Bank, co-founded by Belmont alum Harry Allen. Studio Bank is passionate about what its members create, and their team is here to support you through the process. Studio provides capital and services to build businesses. It offers mortgage and home loan options, whether you're a first-time home buyer or purchasing your 5th home. The bank works with artists to reach their audiences, helps nonprofits transform communities. And often, the most important work Studio Bank does is simply empowering individuals to pursue their dreams. Studio Bank is here because what you create matters. Visit studiobank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender, NMLS number 1761767.
That's like one of the hardest things about running a small business or being an entrepreneur is it's always changing. And just because it worked last year doesn't mean it's going to work this year. Or just because it worked for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And you have to stay nimble and flexible, like what you guys have learned sometimes the hard way. Just because you're like, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do. If you just keep your head down and keep doing that, you might be digging yourself in a hole rather than going where you need to go.
Yeah, and you'll see people do it on a much larger scale. And you're like, whoa, like I didn't know someone could make like $1 billion mistake. And it's like, oh, yes, they can. And they're doing it the same way that you're doing it with your small business. You're just given the opportunity, like you said, to be nimble. Like it's really easy to pivot like a 5-person, 10-person company. And it's so hard to pivot something that's so much larger. Mm-hmm. So at least we have the opportunity to like make mistakes. Yeah. And then like it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world.
So how many storefronts do you have today?
So we have 4.
Okay.
2 of those are our corporate storefronts here in Nashville. So pre-COVID, we had 3 open and the one on Broadway hadn't opened yet. So we closed 2 of the ones in Nashville and then we have 2 still open. And then we still have 2 franchisees as well in Chattanooga and then in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay. And how many employees do you guys have?
Oh, I know the answer to this. I did something the other day administratively. So we have a lot of part-time employees. Mm-hmm. There are 5 of us that are full-time. Mm-hmm. We have our 5 core people on our core team. And then we have 22 part-time employees who are all incredible people. And some of them almost essentially work full-time for us at the scoop shops. And ironically, like I said, I think like 19 of those 22 probably go to Belmont currently.
Yep.
Oh. I love it.
Yeah.
So the bulk of your sales, is it mostly in the storefronts or the e-commerce? Where's the majority of your revenue coming from?
it's now kind of like broken into a bunch of pieces,
Mhm.
which is really cool,
Yeah.
especially going into the year that we're about to go into, the second half.
Diversify.
Yeah. So the scoop shops, I would say at the beginning of this year were actually the majority of our sales,
Mhm.
ironically. So we cut off ads. We didn't have a lot of wholesale accounts yet. And then by March, wholesale was a much larger portion of our business. Our biggest retailer is actually DoorDash. So DoorDash started opening up a concept called Dash Mart that competes with GoPuff. And they are going to be stocking us nationwide by the end of summer. But throughout, the spring and throughout actually like this month, they've been testing it out in more and more markets. And we do really, really well with them. Like knock it out of the park well, which is so much. It's so cool to watch that happen and to watch people get our product again in different cities and be like, oh, I love this. And then post about it on social media or like actually interact with us. That's a really cool feeling. Uh, and then e-commerce has definitely it glided to a halt, glided like slowly down into like, I think March was like our slowest month with e-com. And then it's kind of picked up since then. But that probably makes up about 10% of our sales now versus like in 2021 and 2020, it was about 80% of our sales. So the mix of things has shifted. But to your point, we're trying to be nimble, but we're also focused on being profitable. So there were months at the beginning of this year where we sold. There were months at the beginning of this year where we sold about $20,000 of cookie dough online, and we made money doing that. So we made like $4,000 or whatever. And there were months in 2020 where we sold $150,000 of cookie dough online, and we lost, $10,000 or whatever it
Wow.
might. So it's just
Why is that? Explain that.
yeah. So essentially, if you're running an e-commerce business, you have three main costs. They're going to be your product costs, your cost of acquisition, and then the cost to ship. People don't think about the cost of acquisition or the cost to ship enough. So you'll see people come out and be like, oh, my gross margin is like 80% or higher, like even better, which is very common with an e-commerce product and direct to consumer. It's why people back in like 2012 were like, oh my gosh, Birchbox, like, or whatever it might have been at the time, like margins are crazy. Like this is like foolproof. What they didn't realize is what stores exist for, like what the grocery store, what Target, like what all those people are doing every day is they're acquiring customers constantly. And there is a cost associated with that. And for most of us in direct to consumer, by the time 2020 rolled around, that was just Facebook ads.
Mhm.
Like you spend money on Facebook and a little bit on Google, and like that results in you getting some customers. So if you sell something for $100 and it takes you $20 to make it, then you have $80 left in theory. Well, a lot of brands were actually spending $40 on acquiring a customer after that. And they were chalking up the losses that they would have after you bake in the rest of that to lifetime value, which is nonsense. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but it's really a nonsense stat that was invented by VCs to make people feel better about lighting money on fire. So you would get situations where you lose $10 every time you sell a unit. So someone comes and orders a product from you and you lose $10 before you're paying your employees, before you're paying yourself, before you're paying your rent. And then you're spending even more money paying all of those costs. And they're chalk that up to, well, they're going to come back on average once a month, and that's going to turn into like whatever sales that turns into. The problem is no one can see the future. And so for a lot of businesses that used that tactic to raise money, they have since then gone on to either go bankrupt, get sold for less than what they raised. There's a lot of really good examples. If you want like the worst ones, it would be Birchbox and Casper. There are a lot of others where like I think at its peak, Casper was valued at like over $1 billion. They raised about 400 million, and then they got bought by a private equity firm and taken private again after the IPO for I think $300 million. So, I mean, the private equity firm got a deal, but at the same time, how many times is someone going to come back and buy a mattress? I don't know.
Right.
But there's a lot of times where people will use those things to justify getting into a business model that may not make sense in reality. And so we actually were doing that in like 2021 and 2020. Like we did actually make a lot of money in the beginning of 2020 because customer acquisition costs were very low. And we weren't putting as much effort into shipping the product as we did by the time we got to 2021. Mm-hmm. So we kept having more and more customer issues like returns, bad product, have to refund an order because it got hot. And so you start putting more gel packs in the order, better bubble bags, better boxes, better jars. The cost to produce the product goes up, you have more employees. And then you're like, oh, wait, like we're definitely not making money. And if we are, we're making like 3 or 4%, which ironically is what grocery stores make. So it's weird how like once you boil it all down, a lot of people, no matter how you're getting the product to the customer, you're actually making about the same amount of money. Granted, if you're wholesaling it, you're probably making more than like 5% net. You're just selling less products. But the volume of money, like all of it ends up going to the same places regardless, which is really, really interesting to think about. It's like when you're trying to replace the grocery store, it's similar to when Krispy Kreme attempted to truck all their donuts around, which is actually a business school case study where like eventually the board was like, we're not a trucking company. We should stop doing this and then hire someone to do it because they do it better than we do. Yeah. So that's what direct-to-consumer companies are, and it's what we tried to be, and we'll still do that, but we're not going to like bend over backwards to acquire customers doing it. If we can get those customers on Amazon, or I can find them in Kroger or on DoorDash's platform or wherever else, I'm cool with that. Like we said, like Megan makes cool products, and her goal is to get it to people, not to be weird about like where they buy it.
Yeah, man, since day one, you guys have just been such hustlers, like in the right way. I mean, it's just been apparent, like since the day I met you, like you guys work so hard. You were working other jobs and launching this, and then you just have guts and grit, and you just work so hard. I know you guys are some of the hardest working people I've ever met. And Jimmy always has these little nuggets, like you are constantly learning, and that it's such, I mean, this is what's going to set you guys up for success. Whatever you end up doing 10, 15, 20 years down the road, maybe it's still cookie dough, maybe not. But I just love that you're always hungry to learn, and you're always diving in to learn something. Especially with business and entrepreneurship, of course, like that's kind of your wheelhouse and what interests you. But yeah, I hope that's something that other people can learn from you guys. Like we can see the success that you've had with the cookie dough business, but it's really more about who you guys are as a person. That's what's driven the success, not the product, which is really remarkable, but it's who you are and what you guys have done over these last few years. And it's really been a very short time. I have to keep doing the math in my head and saying like, you guys graduated less than 10 years ago. You have only been doing this business 5 years. You are very young in all actuality. And
under 30. Fingers
what'd you
crossed.
say?
I said Forbes 30 under 30, fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's
For real. Yes, you got, okay,
We got a couple of years.
Yeah.
We have a couple more shots.
Yeah.
You're not even 30 yet. It's incredible. And, also just thinking of the last 5 years, man, y'all got married, you launched a business, the tornado, COVID, you had a baby, and you lost a house. You had 2 babies. Yes.
Yeah.
We did have our house burned down.
Yeah, we went through a lot of weird things all at once. So it's been wild.
But I think that like to your point, I think what Megan likes doing the most, and she's posted about this on LinkedIn a lot. And so I like learning from like all of the stuff that's happening is actually kind of what entrepreneurship's about. It's not actually about like knowing what you're doing. I hate when people think they know what they're doing. I'm like, nobody knows. None of us know. Even the people that seem like they really have it put together, they seem like that because they're just very open-minded. They're constantly like learning from other people what to do. And they're also really good at making decisions when they don't have all the information. we both have a ton of respect for that. And I think that, like, if you look at people who are really, really successful, that's what they're good at. They're just good at being a student of, whatever it is they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I say to students all the time, if it's messy, don't take that as a sign that you need to give it up. Sometimes if it's difficult, if it's challenging, if it's really messy, that might be a sign that you're in it and that it's working. Like, that's just entrepreneurship. It's never going to be a straight line.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
It will mostly feel like failure most of the time.
Yes. So, speaking of young entrepreneurs, I know one thing you guys are really passionate about is empowering the next generation, and the people younger than you. And you talk about this on your website with some of your mission and some of the goals of your business and how you treat your employees. And then I see it a lot, and even just the way you talk and what you post on social media. There was something you posted the other day, Megan, and I wrote the quote down because I really liked it, but it said, "Our work should equip the next generation of women to outdo us in every field. That is the legacy we leave behind." And just talk to me a little bit about that and why the spirit of that is so important to you guys and what that means to you with the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, I think in general, both of us love to encourage entrepreneurship because I think if you don't come from a background of seeing someone own a business and you don't know that it's possible for anyone to do, then you kind of just assume that you can't do it. You assume there's some kind of special resource that you need to be able to do it. So I see this with our staff members, the ones that are still college students, they have in their head, like, I'm going to college, I need to graduate, and I need to get this kind of job. Like, that is the life that I need to live. And I felt that way too, even though I had an example of people who didn't take that path. And so I think for both of us, it's really important to show people there are so many paths you can take, not just the one that society kind of deemed as like the ideal path, be this person who goes to school, gets a job, buys a house, and has kids. Like, you can take that path and thrive in it for sure, but you don't have to do that. And so we definitely make a point to kind of like be an example where we can be of people who didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have financial resources to do this, but we still found a way to do it. And we want to show people that it's possible. But me personally, especially since becoming a mom, I feel super passionate about showing women that they can also still pursue their dreams and do what they want, whether that's working a full-time job after they have children or whether that's starting a business once they already have a family. I have talked to a lot of women who feel very held back because they feel the pressure to stay at home with their kids or just kind of make the sacrifices so that their significant other doesn't have to. And I definitely understand that pressure. I think, even from the position that I'm sitting in, I still feel this sense of guilt when I'm not spending all my time with my kids. A sense of guilt that I think only comes to women for some reason.
Yeah.
And so I understand the feeling for sure, but I just want to encourage women, and show them that there is another way if they don't want to be the mom that has to stay home, which a lot of women want to be. And I think that's like an amazing path to take, especially if you have the opportunity to. But I just want to show the other women that there are other options. You can do everything at once as a woman. I think we are really great at multitasking. I think it's a natural skill that we have. And so so I'm really passionate about, making sure people are not holding themselves back because of societal pressures or even pressure they're putting on themselves that other people are not putting on them. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the future, like, that's kind of what we both want to do in order to, like, I don't know, like, live out like things that we value. We're working on some stuff in Nashville right now that's like directly related to that specific issue. And I think it'll be really cool when it gets done.
Yeah. Okay, that's exciting. You're smiling. I can't wait to find out what that is.
Yeah.
I love the spirit of all that. You know, sometimes people think entrepreneurship, and when we get into the VC world and Silicon Valley and all that, it can just seem so like dog eat dog, competitive. But really, what I have found in the whole entrepreneurial world, it's more buoyancy. It's like we can lift each other up, and if one person succeeds, that can mean that others succeed as well, because you know you can lift each other up. And like if you guys are succeeding, then the opportunities that you're creating for your employees and what they can do, and you know, you can lift everyone up and empower. I love the notion of that the next generation would be even better than we are. And that's what success means to me, is if they can have it even better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Well, tell me a little bit about what it's been like the last 5 years being married and running a business together. Like you guys are 24/7 together, and you are in the thick of it. With so many challenges and so many things that really could make you crumble, but you guys have risen above, and I know it's brought you closer together, but it has not been easy. How do you guys navigate life together as entrepreneurs and business owners?
We should each answer this question.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I personally think that it has caused us to have a really great marriage. The fact that we have run a business together. You know, I think communication is always, not always, but a lot of times it's one of the biggest issues in any kind of relationship. And I think through us running a business together, we learned very quickly how to communicate efficiently. And we understood, you know, each of our own different perspectives. We were forced to really communicate about a ton of things and disagree on a ton of things, but find ways to work through it in the name of NoBaked. And I think we built a skill of being able to do that both professionally and personally that has benefited our marriage a lot. I think if either of us were entrepreneurs on our own with our own businesses, we probably would not be able to be married, because we're both so passionate about work and want to spend a lot of time talking about it and brainstorming and growing it. And if we weren't together doing it, we would be spending all of our free time doing it separate. So there's just no way we could be married with businesses that weren't the same business. So in that way, I think it's been really great. It also forces us to talk about things like finance and our personal income and things that cause a lot of issues in marriages. They just don't cause issues in our marriage because we're completely in it together, you know. There's no like separate income. There's no like, oh, I don't know where the money's coming from. I don't know what it's going towards, like that kind of issue.
Yeah.
So I think it's been actually a good thing for our marriage personally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are kind of my points. She stole my points.
See, we
I
think the same thing.
I recently realized the last point that Megan said and how important it is. So, for instance, you would never have co-founders and like one of the co-founders goes out and spends a bunch of money and doesn't tell anybody. Like you would go to jail. Like that's fraud. You wouldn't like raise a bunch of money and be like, yeah, I bought a Ferrari. Like later, guys. That doesn't happen. If it does, it causes legal issues and really bad problems. So co-founders have issues already because those things do not necessarily to that extent, but things like that do happen in business pretty often, especially with funded companies. And money does cause issues when it's given to people, as we all know. Like it can be a tool and it can also be really, really bad. So that happens with co-founders a lot. Recently, I guess we've gotten to the age where this is a thing and this feels weird. We've had friends that have gotten divorced. And most of those divorces, I would say like half of them are for money. And it's like, not like because of things that people didn't know about. or just didn't talk about, or there just wasn't open communication, which is strange to us. Because for me, I'm like, hey, like, wouldn't you tell the person like everything? Or like just have like all be on the same complete page? Because for two people running a company together, that's just not something you do. You can't be on different pages. It's weird. And there's not like, I mean, in some companies there is like a money person, but like everybody for the most part, like gets the P&L, everyone gets the balance sheet, like they know what's happening. And that was surprising to us as a couple. I think we didn't realize that we had that skill or that was a good thing until we realized it by watching other people fail. And that sucks. Really bad. But the other thing is communication. Like you're forced to communicate as founders. And so then it forces you to communicate as a couple. I think a lot of people, when they get married, for the most part these days, give up pretty easily. But also, not just that, they get married either too young or to the wrong person, or they grow apart. And the business has forced us to grow together. I know that a lot of people are like, a lot of founders get divorced. A lot of founders that are married get divorced, and they're running the same business. That happens very often. For the most part, it's a communication issue that, like, if you talk to those people, they will tell you, like, yeah, we just weren't good at communicating. And eventually, like, it just wasn't working. Also, to go off of what Megan said, again, like, we're both not necessarily selfish people, but very driven and like put the blinders on people. And sometimes that can be in our personal lives. It can also be with business. And when you are with another person like that, you have to kind of understand how they operate. And being forced to operate NoBaked together brought us way closer than we would have been if we'd been doing different things. So it's like specific to who we are and like how we both like learn and do things, but I don't think it would work for everybody. It definitely works for us, which is weird, but here we are.
Also, it helps that Jimmy, like, I this sounds so silly to say out loud in this year, but Jimmy has never treated me like I have a role that he doesn't have. Like, for example, we have kids now, and Jimmy would never look at me and tell me I needed to be more of a parent than him or anything along those lines. And so
yeah,
I think that has helped a ton.
At this point, like, I love my kids. I love my kids so much. Don't take this out of context. But for me, like, before Aria was even born, I looked at Megan and I was like, you're still the CEO, which means you can't take maternity leave. And you can't, like, we can't take time off. Like, there will be, and you have to also reflect on like what that year was for us. But like, there was no time off. There's no like, oh, I'm gonna chill with my kid. That goes for both of us. And that's an unfortunate reality for most entrepreneurs. I think our kids are young enough at this point to where I hope they will thank us for making the decisions we have made early in their lives. But like, for us, it's like we're a team and we're running this company together. And for anyone that's done it or attempted to grow a business, it's really hard and it takes a lot of your time and attention. And so that business kind of came first, and it will continue to come first, like, in our lives, until we can get it to a point where we can. Granted, the older Aria gets, the more I'm like, I want to spend more time with her, not doing whatever it is this nonsense is. But in reality, like, we understand like the opportunity we were given, because like at the end of the day, like, us as people do have a really big impact on the success of NoBaked. But in reverse, like, NoBaked has a big impact on the success of us, and how many opportunities will you get throughout your life to actually take something from like 0 to 1? If you won't. So like, if you're given that, if it's in front of you right now, you need to work on it, because you're not going to get it again. I mean, maybe you will, but we're not all Elon Musk. You're not going to just keep knocking out of the park over and over again. You might get like 1 or 2 like shots to do that. And we want to make sure we take it.
Well, you kind of answered my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you have anything to add, what would you say to other young entrepreneurs who have that chance, who have an idea, who have something that they want to jump out and try?
I would say just do it, in the words of Nike. I think there's going to be a lot of times that you feel like giving up, or you're just discouraged, or a curveball is thrown at you that you really don't see how you can make it through. But you just kind of have to take yourself back to the beginning and why you either wanted to do it in the first place or why you started doing it in the first place, and just remind yourself that it's worth it and keep pushing through and just do it.
Yeah. That's how I feel as well. Just like a little, like for me, it's a little different. It's essentially like, I really do think people should just do it and jump into it. And I also think that they shouldn't limit themselves, because that limiting mindset happens with so many entrepreneurs. Instead, you should just be like, what do I really want this to be for me? And then make that happen. Like, that doesn't mean that you need to sell like billions of dollars of stuff. That literally just means like someone needs to go into it being like, this is my dream. And they're dreaming as big and as crazy as they want to dream, not because they feel like limited by society or by the people around them, or whatever it might be. Because sometimes you'll talk to someone and they're like, well, I think this can be like, I can sell like $2 million of this thing a year or whatever. And you can kind of tell that's not really what they think. Like, they think it could be way bigger than that, and they're afraid to say it out loud. And if you're afraid to say it out loud, I mean, it's not going to happen. So you got to at least like be willing to say the crazy thing, and then everyone can think you're insane. I mean, Megan and I have gone. The example of this is the last 5 years, we've really struggled to scale. So like, there are a lot of people that have a lot of respect, I guess, for what we do. That's awesome. You're one of those people. And you guys have made me feel really good about failing all the time. But really what we've been doing is like constantly trying to scale. And then I go out to raise money or do whatever it is I'm doing. Or like, I was speaking at an event last week where I did a pitch, and I'm like, and this year we're going to do $10 million in sales. And I feel like a lunatic. But I have to keep saying those things because I know it can happen. And it simply isn't going to if I don't at least like lay out in at least verbally the plan. I mean, we've laid it out more than verbally, but it's like, you at least have to say this is going to happen, and it may not happen, and that's okay. But
you got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
So others can believe in you too.
Yeah.
Okay. So where are we going to see you guys in 5 years? It's been a crazy 5 years leading up to this point.
Yeah.
Oh my God. 5 years. The reason it's funny that you asked that is since we started NoBaked, people have been throwing out 5 years as the number. They're like, where are we going in 5 years? Like, what's going to happen in 5 years? And it's always us saying something about exiting. And now we're 5 years in, and that's not
that's not where we are. No, my vision for NoBaked is, and really like my overarching goal is making it accessible for as many people as possible. So Jimmy mentioned this a little, but we are going into grocery stores now. That's what we're spending a huge amount of our time doing. Because in our eyes, this is a product that appeals to a ton of people. And I think, grocery stores are the most convenient way for people to get food. And that's really where I see NoBaked. I want it to be nationwide and as many retailers as possible. So long term, that's really what my goal is at this point.
Yeah, and executing kind of like on our mission, which is really like to make it a little less like floofy. Like, our mission is chef driven, not lab driven. And really what that meant is like bringing a chef driven product to market. That's not done anymore. So you have a lot of conglomerates that bring like really cheaply made, like well branded, well known, like been around for 100-year products to market all the time, whether it be a cereal brand or the Oreo or whatever. Nothing against Oreos. And then on the flip side, you have a lot of startups in our space right now that are focusing on, go read Megan's LinkedIn post from this morning, a whole bunch of health product trends that don't mean anything. So there is no value proposition or differentiating factor in a label, but a lot of people have blinded themselves to think that there is. I haven't met very many people, other than for vegan and gluten-free, I've not met many people that buy because of their label on a product. So whether it be like women owned or non-GMO or whatever, there are not a lot of people that actually pay attention to that. There's not a differentiating factor, because I can go, and the conglomerates are proving this right now, they will throw those same labels on their products. For instance, like all popcorn is labeled gluten-free in the store for some reason, yet there is no such thing as gluten popcorn.
Yeah.
It's all gluten-free from day one.
Yeah.
So you have those two sides of the same coin, and what we are planning to do is be contrarian and split the middle. We're bringing a product to market that people truly love. And they love it because it was made in a kitchen of a scoop shop and served in a restaurant environment. And so our goal for 5 years from now is to not just bring that to market, but to bring other products to market and everything that we do that is chef driven. So like in 5 years, maybe some of those conglomerates and maybe some of those startups will follow our path. And we'll start getting food in the grocery store that's not just better for you, but good in general. Is now I go into the store, especially the center store, where we actually aren't right now, but where you'll see chips and bars and popcorn or whatever. And there aren't a lot of great products. And to be completely honest, like the ones that are being started right now, for the most part, just come and go, which speaks to the problem, which is that consumers don't care. They really care about flavor. And we've seen that firsthand.
Picture this. You're walking around a gorgeous college campus, attending class with professors who know you by name, and interning at one of the country's top companies. Nashville is your backyard, and with concerts, sporting events, and tons of restaurants, there's no shortage of things to fill your free time. Come see for yourself what the dream school vibes are all about at belmont.edu/visit.
Okay, do you guys have some time for a few rapid fire questions?
Yeah, he's just waking up right now, so
He looks happy. Oh, no, he doesn't. Oh, no, he doesn't. Okay, yeah, let's just do this real quick.
Okay, what's your favorite flavor?
S'mores.
Chocolate chip.
How many flavors do you guys have? I should have asked that earlier.
Between 8 and 12, depending on the store or online.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about each other?
I have a good answer. My favorite thing about Megan is her drive to overcome problems that everyone else says cannot be overcome.
I'd say his supportiveness and also his drive as well.
When are you guys most productive? What time of day?
The night.
Middle of the day.
What is an inspiring book that you love to share?
Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike.
Mine would be right now The Obstacle. The Obstacle is the Way. I can't remember the guy's name. It's the person that runs the Daily Stoic Instagram page. It's a really good book.
Okay. And my last one was, where are we going to see you next? But you kind of already said that.
Yeah, right now on DoorDash.
We'll see us nationwide.
Soon nationwide, so that's probably the easiest.
Thank you guys so much. Y'all are awesome. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on, Elizabeth.
Thanks for listening. What If is produced by Old Soul. For links and show notes, please visit belmontetp.com/whatif. Until next time, keep asking what if.